everyone. Welcome to the Birth and Body podcast. This is Bethany Stricker, and I'm just thrilled you are here tuning in. I'm a licensed midwife in the DFW, Texas area and serve families through the midwifery model of care by offering preconception, counseling, prenatal care, and home and birth center birth. This podcast is all about women's stories and voices and meant to be an encouragement and resource for all things women's health and wellness. If you're enjoying the podcast, we would so appreciate your support so that we can continue offering these resources to families everywhere. Please visit the LiberaPay link below the video on YouTube or in the description wherever you are listening to the podcast if you'd like to support monetarily. If you're a doula or childbirth educator and desire to further your education, or someday maybe you want to be a midwife, I would love for you to join my Steps to Midwifery group on Facebook, where we go over cases and go into detail about all of the things we talk about on the podcast. It's classes and resources and all the things there. If you'd like more information, you can visit my website at bethanystricker.com for more information or to join the Steps to Midwifery group. So I'm so thrilled for our guest today, as her mission and philosophy is similar to the midwifery, a model of care, and that she encourages her patients to support their bodies through a natural lifestyle and non-toxic alternative options. Dr. Michelle Kirk is a chiropractor here in the area that supports vibrant health, stays true to the principles of nature, and honors the body's innate wisdom and desire to be well. Dr. Michelle is also a certified homeoprophylaxis practitioner, which is an alternative way to help the immune system react appropriately when challenged with a disease. I'm so excited to have her share about homeoprophylaxis because it is such a great option for those who are concerned about the side effects of vaccines. Okay, Dr. Michelle, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
I so appreciate you driving in this dreary weather all the way from Frisco.
All the way from Frisco. It was okay. I gave myself plenty of time. But this weather doesn't feel like Texas weather, does it?
I know. Maybe winter's finally here.
Maybe.
Well, speaking of winter, do you have more people now contacting you about homeoprophylaxis and everything up where you are?
We do, because we do offer a remedy for the flu. Yeah, so that's probably one of our best, most popular selling items. So yeah, things are really going to start to ramp up here as far as the homeopathic flu stuff. And what's great about that is that it's safe for the whole family. So we have lots of clients that they just give it to their whole family once a week, just to keep everybody primed and ready. And I think people now more than ever are definitely tuned into what an immune system is and how it functions and how important it is to keep it working and healthy. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just so excited to have you because, of course, my patients are always asking me about vaccines and what their options are. So kind of on my list, I have information about you and that alternative, because we talk about alternatives all the time in midwifery and just options and everything. So for people that don't know, I had someone come on about homeopathy, but homeoprophylaxis is kind of like a branch of that sort of frequency medicine. How does it work?
Okay.
Because I'm learning too. And what is
I'm
it
still
about?
learning.
Yeah. It never ends, right?
It never ends. Well, just as a basis, if they haven't seen your other or listened to your other podcast, first off, I'm not a homeopath. I'm a doctor of chiropractic, but I am certified in homeoprophylaxis. So just to break it down, homeo is the practice of homeopathy or using homeopathic remedies, and prophylaxis is prophylactically to prevent. So homeoprophylaxis, or we just call it HP, so we don't have to say that word over and over again. HP is using homeopathic remedies as a form of immunization or preventing infection or disease. So it's a branch of homeopathy that not all homeopaths use, but is, especially in the United States, is really gaining traction and gaining popularity as families start to kind of search for alternatives and different ways of doing things for their family's health. So yeah, it's something that I've been doing for, almost 3 years. Something that I've known about for a lot longer, but it took me a while to kind of find out even how to get certified to do it. It wasn't, it's not super kind of well known in the States. In other parts of the world, and we'll go into that later, they've been using it for many, many years. But yeah.
So how did you find it? Just like with your own journey with your own kids? And
yeah, basically. So I'm a family chiropractor. Probably like you, one of the most common questions I get is, do you vaccinate your kids?
Right.
You know,
what do you do? Tell me what to do.
Tell me. Yeah. And I get it because it's a big decision. And I could never say, do it or don't do it. You just have to lay out all the options, and then your family has to choose what's best for your family, right? And you have to be very comfortable in that choice. And so, I guess also being a chiropractor, you know, we think about health differently. You know, we understand that the body is a self-healing, self-regulating machine. We need to take care of it. And so I guess we're probably open to more natural things, right?
Sure.
And so I had 2 midwife-led home births.
I love that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, you know, my kids have been adjusted since the very beginning. And I've been a part of the ICPA, which is the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association. And I remember they put out this really nice magazine for patients. It's like a quarterly magazine, and they have all sorts of really good resources. They have articles by midwives and doulas and natural healers, and they had an article on HP. And I thought, gosh, this is really interesting. Like, why have I never heard this before? And I get this question all the time about vaccines, and I didn't even know this existed. And, you know, I used homeopathy for my kids because it works beautifully for a teething toddler or a colicky baby, you know, and, but I never knew that this kind of other practice of it existed. And then I couldn't find out any more about it. So we were in Puerto Rico at the time. And I just didn't know about it. Couldn't figure it out. Couldn't find anything about it. So I just kind of tabled it and circled back to it a few years ago. After wrapping up our life in Puerto Rico, we spent a little bit of time in Scotland. That's where my husband's from. So we were in Scotland for about 8 months. And, you know, we were lucky enough to be able to travel with our boys. And I had this very distinct memory of being on the London Underground on the tube. And I'm not a germaphobe, but just thinking, there's gotta be something else.
Sure.
Like, you know, the mom instinct, you're just like, something clicked. I said, you know, I'm going to circle back and I got to figure this out this time because I want this for my family. And that really kind of spurred me to get certified through a course I took from a doctor that does this in Australia.
Okay.
And then did my advanced certification with a practitioner here in Dallas, luckily. Okay. And so did the certification and then started kind of practicing it more consistently about 2 years ago.
Yeah. That's awesome. So for someone maybe who is thinking, I'm not quite comfortable with vaccines, especially, you know, you've had home births, you understand a lot of the people who I come in contact with have thought about everything they've put in their body, everything they're considering putting in their baby's body, and then to potentially follow the CDC schedule. It would be often a complete
departure
from what they've been deciding the last year. So how does it compare in that way, like homeoprophylaxis as, I guess, an alternative to vaccines? Is that an okay way to phrase that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an okay way to phrase it. Well, it works differently.
Okay.
We prefer to call it more educating the immune system because homeopathic remedies, you know, they're made from an animal or a plant or a mineral, or in this case, an HP, a disease. So that diseased tissue is taken into homeopathic form, which means it's diluted over and over and over and over until basically the energy of it exists. What it means for family is that it's very, very safe.
Right.
Right. Because you can't catch the disease from the HP remedies. And the remedies that we use are 100% organic. They are gluten-free. They're lactose-free.
Right.
They're everything-free.
There's no allergens in them.
No allergens.
Yeah.
There's no adjuvants. There's none of these ingredients that you may see in a traditional vaccination that some parents may feel concerned about injecting straight into their young child. So, in that respect, it's very, very safe. And we know from some of the studies that have been done that it looks to be about 90% effective. So very effective, but more importantly, no chance of any ill effects from it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Probably the most common thing we'll see if we see any kind of side effect is, for example, if you're doing the pertussis remedy, that maybe for 24 hours, the child has a small cough or a little bit of a runny nose. And that's okay. It doesn't happen very often. And almost always it resolves in 24 hours. It's, they're expressing a little bit, and that's normal. It's part of it. Like I say, a very small percentage. I haven't seen it happen in my kids. Every once in a while it happens, and that's okay. It's normal. You want to think of HP as an education of the immune system, right? So you're basically getting exposed to the energetic form of the disease, okay?
Sure.
Without any of the negative consequences.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So then when someone is potentially exposed, their body is like,
Recognizes
I kind of
it.
know. I know what this is.
They're like, we've got this.
Yeah.
We've seen this before, which is what immunity is. Right. And you're bypassing all of the potential responses you might have from a more traditional route.
Sure. That's amazing.
It's awesome.
So for someone who wants to know more, or if they're a research kind of person like I am,
Yes.
where would you recommend? Like, do you have favorite large studies, or?
I have a few. So just to put it in perspective, homeopathy is not a new thing, right? Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, 200 years ago, who's the father of homeopathy, he actually noticed in his work that the remedy belladonna seemed to prove very effective in preventing scarlet fever. So this isn't a new thing. So in your show notes, I'll make sure everyone gets, the places they can go to read about some of these studies. Great. But they're in India. They have sample sizes of 65 million with an M, million people. That a lot of times in some of these countries that homeopathy is more recognized as a healing art or a form of medicine. They'll use these remedies to prevent outbreaks. And these remedies are given by government scientists and officials. So these are government-sanctioned programs to go out into these populations. And in India, for example, a lot of times they'll use it for the prevention of Japanese encephalitis. In Brazil, they'll use it for Zika. Probably one of my most favorite studies is a study out of Cuba. And it was a while ago, it was in the early 2000s, that a hurricane hit Cuba. And so we know that the Cuban health system is lacking for to put it mildly, right? They don't have a lot of resources. And so this hurricane hit Cuba and it was devastating. And of course, they had no clean water. And so there was so much runoff from all of the rain going into the rivers and the streams. And this runoff contained animal, feces, manure. And there was, because people didn't have access to clean water, they were just drinking the water that they could drink, and it was contaminated with leptospirosis. Now, leptospirosis can be very serious very fast. And for someone in a more rural community that perhaps the roads are wiped out, they can't get to a doctor or hospital, or even if the doctors or hospitals were even open, right, because of this hurricane, the Cuban government had to do something very quickly to try and prevent this outbreak from happening on a very large scale. And so along with the Finlay Institute, they started producing a homeopathic preparation to prevent leptospirosis, and they distributed it to 2 million people and prevented an outbreak.
Wow.
So, you hear something like that and you think, that's just absolutely amazing. And because homeopathy is so affordable and so easy to reproduce, that they were able to get this out very quickly and prevent something catastrophic on top of this already catastrophic thing that happened. And so it's really one of my, probably the better known studies. Sure. But, HP has been used in Japan and Australia and Germany and India. I mean, all over the world, and everyone's getting the benefit except us.
I know.
So that's why we're here, is to try to spread the word. One of the questions that we get a lot of the time is, isn't it just okay to eat healthy?
Right.
Can't I just take my vitamins? And HP should never be it doesn't take the place of common sense. Right. Right. You still need to eat well.
Right.
You got to get outside. You got to go play, get your vitamin D, take your vitamin. That doesn't change that. You still have to wash your hands. Right. One of the studies that I like, though, and I wouldn't say it's 100% conclusive, but I think it's an interesting concept, is that he sampled about 3,000 of his clients, patients, children that had been through his program, and other kids. So the sample group was about 3,000. So it wasn't gigantic, but it was big enough. And he split them up into 4 groups. So there was the kids that had HP as immunization only. There are the kids that had traditional vaccinations. There's the kids that the parents fed them organic food and were more kind of health conscious, but that's it. And then there was the other, just whatever. Okay. And what he found is that there was better health outcomes for the children that had HP, because in effect, this exposure to this energetic form of the disease was maturing the immune system. So they had less incidences of strep throat, ear infections later on in life. So their immune system seemed to be stronger with the HP, which I think is fascinating.
That is so interesting.
So he says it's not 100% conclusive, but 3,000 people is enough to say, listen, I think it's worth, talking about. And I know for my family, my kids seem very resilient to, the things that go around. And I'd like to say that it's all up to me, but I think for us, I definitely think this has been a wonderful part of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for my personal health, personal health journey, I was on so many antibiotics as a child. And then that has just led to so many other things and hormonal issues and just gut issues. And even if something as simple, even if someone still wanted to do vaccines and this, it's still going to help them fight common things that much better.
Yeah. The great thing about HP is that there's flexibility.
Right.
Right. It's not a one size fits all. Our most common is the childhood. Our most popular item is the childhood full HP kit. For parents that say, I'm not going the traditional route, I'm going to do HP, and that's us.
Right.
But if there was a parent that felt very strongly one way or another, I really insist that they have this particular vaccine, but I'm not so insistent on the other, we can customize. It doesn't have to be a one size fits all, because it doesn't, we can build it any way we'd like. And actually, even though the flu and the childhood HP kits are the most popular, because that's kind of the population that I see in day-to-day practice. Right. More and more now, more and more, we have adults coming and doing HP kits because they go to their doctor for their general physical, and the doctor's like, "You're due for your tetanus.
Right.
You're having a new grandbaby. You need pertussis. Flu season," and they're scaring them. and they're very insistent that they need to do this, but perhaps they have had their own health challenges and they're not 100% sure that they want to have this traditional vaccine. And so we've been doing even HP kits for adults and our pregnant patients as well.
Right.
Because what are the most common vaccinations that are recommended by an OB? Influenza, Tdap, right?
Tdap, yep.
And so we're doing that homeopathically, and it's very, very safe. And there's just no chance of any kind of negative effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for people who, the pediatrician I really love is actually up in your area too. And she is so good at reminding or telling people if your child has ever had a reaction or they're currently sick, they should not be getting a vaccine.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that.
Right.
I think, I don't want to quote her, but I believe she also says if they have had a previous child with a reaction,
if it's in the
they
family.
really want to revisit if they should follow the usual schedule. So is it the same with HP, or can really anyone can do it?
Anyone can do it.
Okay.
Anyone can do it. Because it's energetic. I mean, if your toddler got in and just downed the whole bottle, it's totally fine.
Right.
It's
not going to harm them.
It's not going to harm them. So they'll just be extra protected.
Right.
And one of the things that I love about the homeopathy in general, especially the HP, there's no pushback like from the kids. The remedies, they have a very slight kind of sweet taste. In my house, we call them sprinkles. My kids take their sprinkles. They're good. Like, it's a nothing. They like it. It's easy. Done. I can't, it's very hard for me as a practitioner to recommend something to a patient that I can't handle as a family myself. Like, it has to be doable. It has to be simple. It has to be straightforward. And like, because life is busy, right? And if it's too complicated, people don't do it, right? So, I've just programmed this into like our yearly calendar, and this is the day that we do it. I started doing it like on the weekend, and then we started playing sports and having birthday parties and all, and I thought, forget that. Let's do it during the school week when our schedule is more, tame. You find the day that works for you, and it's just a very easy, very straightforward way to do it. It's all self-administered, so there's flexibility. If your child is sick, then you bump it a week.
Okay.
When they feel better,
sure,
then you restart again. You just shift your dates, no big deal.
And is that, for people who might not know, their immune system's already kind of learning anew if they're presenting something.
Right.
So you just wait till their immune system doesn't need another thing to work on at the time. Okay.
And I think that it's important to remember also is that, we start with pertussis in the childhood kit because most of our clients start when, they're a baby, right? So like 3 to 6 months, and that's more applicable to an infant is pertussis. We don't do tetanus until later because infant doesn't need tetanus.
Right.
They're not going to be rolling around on a farm with rusty nails, right?
Right.
But pertussis is more important to them. So we follow that. You can start at any age. My kids didn't start as babies. We started with pertussis. You could switch them around if you wanted to, but we just kept it simple and we follow it.
Okay.
But yeah, there's flexibility.
Okay. Are there any like bacteria or viruses that it doesn't come in an HP form?
The one that we don't tend to use is diphtheria.
Okay.
It doesn't really exist anymore. I don't think there's been any cases since like 2014. And I think that was just one. Most other ones you can get. We hit 8 of the most common and the most serious meningococcal meningitis,
right.
Haemophilus B influenza, tetanus, pertussis, measles, mumps. But, we don't include chickenpox. It's a mild disease.
Sure.
I have been trying to get my kids exposed to chickenpox for quite a few years now. It's not happening. If it doesn't happen by the time they're in middle school, then we're going to do the HP remedy for chickenpox, or maybe high school, just to offer that protection, because we know chickenpox later in life is tougher, right? So if they don't come down with it here soon, then we can add that later. But we don't tend to add rotavirus. There is one we can get at if you're really insistent that we have it. But rotavirus is a mild disease, like 95% of us get it at one point in time. So it's not, one of the biggies that we like to concentrate on. And I think it's also important to remember that, at no point in your natural life are you going to be exposed to measles, mumps, and rubella on the same day within the same minute. Right. We don't expect, even from a homeopathic point of view, we don't expect the immune system to try to mount any kind of interaction or response for 3 at once. So we just stick to 1 at a time. Sure. And so that's, if the child is unwell or whatever, then you just wait until they're better and then you start again.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And what kind of schedule should someone expect? I know you mentioned once a week. What does that kind of look like?
So it depends on what you're trying to do. For the childhood or the HP schedule for like the diseases, it's once a month.
Oh, how simple.
Easy peasy. Yeah. Easy peasy. We space it out once a month. And from your very first dose, you start to infer that protection. Sure. It also means the program's a little bit longer. So you're going to be doing once a month for a few years, right? After everything is said and done. And then we always provide extra so that if, you knock a few over, they're gone. You can't get them. If they fall on your carpet, they're done. Right. We always leave a few extra, or if you need a booster, if you want to give them a booster and, do a little bit of boosting in 5 years or something, homeopathic remedies last for a long time. So we always make sure there's lots of them in there. So you can, like I say, play with that flexibility. Okay. For influenza, we are recommending once a week. Sure. Just because with everything going on right now, we figure it's probably just wise to keep everybody on a once a week from now until probably March. Okay. But that doesn't mean you can't do the HP. In addition to that, you probably just do it on a different day. Sure. Yeah. Sure. So with the influenza, what my family and I are doing is on a Monday morning, everybody gets it. Done for the week. If you are exposed to the flu and you've had close interaction, then you can take it more consistently, even up to 4 times a day if you need to, just to boost yourself up, right? But yeah, so the flu is a little bit different, and as well as travel. I know no one's traveling right now. Sure. But for example, if you and your family were going to go on a cruise to the Caribbean, you might want to do Zika. Because I've had Zika before, and if I would have known there was a very simple, inexpensive remedy to prevent that, I would have paid any amount of money. Sure. Because it was awful. Yeah. It was awful. I was begging my husband to go to the hospital, and he's like, I know you don't want to go to the hospital. I'm like, just take me to the hospital, because it wreaks havoc on your body. And so, Zika is one that can be administered for travel, or and as well as influenza, or there's even malaria. So there's lots of different options. Hopefully the travel will pick back up and we can all start doing that again. But right. Yeah. Okay. And as you do each dose, does your body just sort of that imprint become more known, or why is it for people who don't know, why do you need to take it more than once? Why do you take it more than once? It's just a layer of protection. Okay. It's like a text message. Right. Or maybe it's like telling your kids to brush your teeth, right? Go brush your teeth, and they're going to get a few steps towards the bathroom. Right. They're going to take a few steps more. So the schedule that we follow is, I particularly follow Dr. Isaac Golden because he's done so much research, and he's just seen the sheer volume of people. He's determined this schedule works the best. I'm not going to second guess him. He's been doing this for a long time, and that's the schedule that we stick to. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's so interesting. Yeah. Well, for those, because I know I'm going to have people that ask, I have a lot of birth workers and other practitioners that listen to the podcast. For those that might want to go that route and potentially learn more to become certified, what does that look like? Or where would you point someone? So we're working on doing a certification here in the States. There's a few different places you can get certified. I'll send you the link so you can post them. You can do the certification through Dr. Isaac Golden in Australia. It's a self-paced course. And then it's just important that you do the US based kind of further studies. So you do that and then you do the US based studies because the pharmacies that you can get the NOSAs from are different. Some of the rules are different. So it's important that you understand that. One of the things that I'm really happy to be a part of is I'm a board member of HPWWC. So that is a nonprofit, Homeoprophylaxis, a worldwide choice. And that is a nonprofit. We're dedicated to the education and the research and just getting the word out about HP and how wonderful it is and answering questions and things like that. So there's a lot of information on hpwwc.org and homeoprophylaxis.education. I'll send you that one because it's tricky to spell.
Thank you. That's great. Awesome.
Has all of the conferences. There was a conference with Dr. Andy Wakefield and others, and some of the research papers and studies that we talked about too. And then one of the things I'm really excited about is in 2021, HPWWC is actually going to do our US-based research study.
Great.
So if you're a client of mine, you're going to get an email asking us to confidentially be a part of that because so much of the study and the research has been in other places. There hasn't been a whole lot done in the US. And so we really want to be able to offer people information, relevant to here. So you can do the certification. It's self-paced. And yeah, it's been wonderful. Something that, I've really, really enjoyed doing. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're here because I feel like homeoprophylaxis I heard about maybe a year ago, and I recently had my 10-year anniversary in the birth world, and I was like, why? It's so often presented as all or nothing with vaccines and no other option besides, of course, supporting our bodies the way we're supposed to with giving them what it needs with exercise and diet and everything. So it's such a good option. Do you have for someone who may have never thought about alternatives to vaccines, do you have favorite resources for those that are just researching vaccines in general?
I mean, there's so many. Yeah. There's so many good places to go. There's been some videos released lately. It's The Truth About Vaccines. That's a great one. Vaccines Revealed, another very interesting series. You can watch it in video. It's a tricky thing because when you talk about vaccines, you definitely never want to give medical advice because it's such a personal decision. But there's so many resources now that Facebook groups, if they haven't closed those down. Right. But, Sure. But I like The Truth of Vaccines and I like Vaccines Revealed. Okay. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there. And I think you just have to gather the research and go on the CDC website. Go look at the ingredients and do your research and get all the different sides and points of view and then make the best decision for your family.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so different for everybody. And it can be overwhelming initially. It is. But I often tell people it doesn't have to be a decision you make right away. Like if you're not sure, just wait. You have many years. You have many years. If you need that much time, just take your time. Until you feel good about the decision.
Right. Yeah. Because listen, you can always get a vaccine, but you can never undo it. Right. So you have to be 100% confident in that decision. Yeah. Right. For sure. And it's a big one. And I get it. It causes a lot of, I think, sleepless nights for a lot of new parents. And you have to be, you have to be set in what's right for your family. But it's one of the reasons that HP has been such a blessing to us because I feel like it's given us kind of the best of both worlds, if that makes sense. Sure. And the studies and the research is just only going to get better with it. So
it's exciting. We have so much access to so many resources.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Well, any other things you want to talk about?
No,
I'm forgetting.
No, I think that probably one of the things for people that I'm in North Texas, but I see clients all over the world. These kits get shipped anywhere. You don't have to sit down with me in person. We do like a kickoff call, and that's kind of the process. So you'll get the kit in the mail. Then we'll do like a telehealth kickoff call, and I'll explain to you how to do it. You get like a little booklet so you can record everything down. If you're like me and my family, if it doesn't get written down, it doesn't happen.
Right.
Or maybe it happened, I don't know, because we get too busy. So, we have a record keeping booklet that goes through everything. It's very easy to follow. And then, of course, anytime you have any questions or comments or anything, you can pop me an email, whatever. And there's always support available to answer any questions,
Awesome.
That you have. Another thing that I want to say is that, well, probably one of the most common questions I get is this going to count as my school vaccines?
Oh, sure. That's a good question.
And the answer is no, because although we're working very hard to get this officially recognized, we're up against a lot of people with a lot of money. So I do know that it has worked for, like sometimes people need, like for jobs, they'll need proofs of this and that, and that's been okay. Sometimes preschools will happily take it. If you, at least in the state of Texas, it's important that you know the rules in your state. Very important, especially now because things get passed that you maybe are not aware of. So it's really important to stay up on that. Luckily in Texas, we have all of our exemptions in place, and you have to go through the health department and get your exemption.
Okay.
And that should count if the school is funded by Texas, the state of Texas, right? Like a public school. Then they accept the exemption. You have no issues. If it's a private school and they don't accept money from the state, then it depends on the school. But I always give all of our clients like a signed form by me that says this is what we're doing and this is what the diseases are protected against, et cetera, et cetera. And then, if it works, great. If it doesn't, great. But it won't be your exemption from public school.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I do get that question a lot. And Texas is pretty good about that.
Yes.
I want to say there's a whole organization that's their main.
Yes.
And I can't remember off
it's
the top
Texas
of my head.
For Vaccine Informed Choice,
I think so.
TVIC, something like that. I'm very thankful for them, even though I can't remember their name right now.
Yeah.
Very thankful. They fight very, very hard, and they're on top of things. So I've definitely encouraged following them because they work very hard to keep those things in place for us. And in my opinion, medical freedom is one of the most pressing issues of our time because, as we know, in California and other places, those choices that the parents make for the families can be taken away very quickly. So when you're researching this vaccine and HP, research your laws in your state too, and make sure you're aware of what's going on in the organizations that can support you as a parent to make the decision that's right for your family.
Absolutely. Especially if you're thinking long term. I mean, it's not even if you follow this traditional CDC schedule, it's years. Like a lot of people don't realize it, especially now. It's all the way through college, the schedule they recommend.
Oh, they have an adult one too in the pipeline. Yeah. So no, it's a lot. And so, and they can add and subtract as they please, right? So it's definitely important to be up on what's happening because that can affect your school choice. It can affect, who knows, even travel one day. So it's important.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I hope that this is really helpful. I think it will be for a lot of people because a lot of my patients and clients ask about it. So for those that want more information, what's the best way for them to contact you or find you?
Yeah, so they can go to my website. It's trueimmune.com. And that'll give a good introduction. You can call me at my office. You can shoot me an email. Any one of those things will work. I'll be happy to talk and answer any questions you may have. And like I said, it's easy peasy. Just we get your kit in the mail and you have your telehealth and then you're ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Let us know what you want to hear about, and if you've made it all the way to the end, please leave us a review. We would so appreciate that. Share about it. You can find more updates and things like that on my Instagram or Facebook. It's at Bethany Stricker Midwifery on Instagram, Bethany Stricker Midwifery Care on Facebook, and then just BethanyStricker.com for website stuff. And make sure you subscribe on Spotify or Apple so you can get notifications for further podcasts. Thanks for listening. Bye.